How often do we hear statements such as males don't feel? Do they have an emotional response to the pandemic? Join me in my discussion with male representatives from the Caribbean, Christopher Nesbeth from Jamaica, Stewart St. John from Barbados, and Peter Ledlow from Grenada. We will discuss whether or not males have an emotional response to the pandemic, their coping strategies, as well as how to change the narrative. The title of this segment is "The Pandemic Affect Males." What do you guys think about this title?
I'm gonna start first. I'm gonna just jump off and say, it's good to see something for that is targeting males, because for the entirety of the pandemic so far, maybe I've seen one or two webinars affecting males, but like specifically. So just to have us as a focus is something that's really comforting for me, I should say.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Stewart. What about Peter and Chris? What do you guys think?
Well, when I heard the title at first, it said that, the pandemic affects males too. And the first thing that came to my mind was, of course, it affects males too. It feels like a lot of times we don't have that voice or that consideration when it comes to like how things might be affecting us or males and our men in general. And it's nice, as Stewart said, to have a voice and to have something targeted specifically for the males, because a lot of times it feels as though we don't have something specifically targeting us. So it's a very nice thing to have. And I feel as though a conversation needs to be had about the things that are affecting males specifically. So yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. So having a voice, that is important. Okay. What about you, Peter?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with everything they would have just said, because it's like when I read it as well, it's like, well, of course it affects males because, we're all experiencing this pandemic. And I think in the back of a lot of people's minds, males are always just supposed to kind of just carry on after a major event and just kind of adjust with it. So, a lot of people don't really stop and pause to really think about, okay, maybe they might be processing things differently during this time. And just opening up the floor for more conversation, like everybody said, for this, for our thoughts and everything, just to be put out there, and yeah.
Okay. How does it affect the males? Is there a difference, do you think? So when compared to females?
Well, I would.
Go ahead.
Well, for me personally, I don't necessarily think there's that much of a difference. Well, I could be wrong. However, I personally, I feel like I still experience kind of sort of the same thing as, well, I've heard many women say, it's just, I think as human beings, and with limiting social contact, it that also plays into a huge part of, I guess, the male experience, because men tend to, do a lot of social things in terms of with their friends and their male friends. And so with that being limited, coming from, I guess, the Caribbean culture, that plays a huge role into just the things that males would have historically enjoyed. So I think it affects, I wouldn't say more, but yeah.
Because it seems like you're saying that males aren't really homebodies. So they need to be out there socializing, interacting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Definitely agree with Peter on that one, for sure. Like personally, I'm a very big social person. So just having to be at home for the most part, well, for all of the part, to be honest, it's kind of hard for me specifically, and it would be for my friend group as well, who would enjoy the same things that I enjoy, and it's mostly a male friend group. So that's definitely one thing that affects us for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of just extending off what Stewart and Peter are saying, I feel as though I have mostly a female friend group. So with them, you know, it seems as though a lot of what we're doing is talking, and our talking doesn't get hindered as much by the pandemic as it would. But with your male friends, you know, a lot of our bonding, I feel like, is done with activities. You know, you get together, you play a game, you go bowling or something, you do physical stuff, and you kind of just talk over the physical stuff. You know, the talking isn't the main point of what you're doing. So whereas with the female relationships, you can keep on talking over social media. With the males, you know, social events are kind of not as easy to go about doing. And I think it impacts us a little bit more in case of that, because our face-to-face stuff is a little bit more front and center when it comes to our socialization. So yeah, for sure.
So I want us to explore that a bit more. With these restrictions in place, like, how are you guys managing that? Because then it would mean less engagement or interaction with your male friends. How are you guys managing that?
That's a tough question. For the main fact that we're managing, well, I can say like I'm managing because I have to, but it's definitely tough because, as Chris would have said, we mostly go out and we do stuff, and then that's how conversation really comes up. So our natural socializing, it starts with, hey, you wanna go to a bar and see what the vibe is there, and then that vibe turns out to be, it's always a good vibe if you go with your friends, because that's when conversation starts and whatnot. But just being at home, I guess we reach out less to each other. That's from my context. I don't want to speak for anyone else, but we kind of just do reach out less to each other. So managing is, I don't know. I try to get in a little bit of exercise, and especially with school going on as well. So that kind of keeps my mind off of it. But who knows how long this is gonna last, and if this lasts beyond school, then really that's when the time is gonna come to see how I'm really managing, when I'm less distracted, right?
So you have something to focus on, Stewart. So it's difficult. What I'm hearing is that it is difficult. I mean, you try to do your own physical activity, but you're distracted by school.
Yeah, so school is playing a good part in distracting me at the time.
Okay. What about the rest of you?
Well, I know I used to have a roommate, and we used to cook a lot because he's a big chef. So we used to do things like that. And now because he's moved back to Bermuda, it's a case where I'd have to like send pictures of what I'm doing and kind of get advice. So it's still there, but it's less. I guess intimate. It's less
interactive.
Yes, it's a little bit more of a stretch. So it's putting more strain on these kinds of things and making you have to consciously reach out to kind of maintain what would otherwise just be a second thought kind of thing, I feel. So I think that's how it's kind of impacting the relationships.
Okay, so there's a deliberate effort to reach out to males. And what if you don't act on that? Then what are the implications? What if you don't act on the physical activity? What are the implications for males and how they manage the pandemic?
That's a good question. And I don't know what the implications are if you don't reach out, because that means that maybe a lot of your friendships might become little bit less close, which would leave you with less social support, which would just not bode well. So I think that kind of highlights the importance of reaching out and making sure that you keep that support system together, because I don't think it bodes well if you let the pandemic and the situation make it so that your relationships become strained and you become isolated. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Chris? Sorry, Stewart, not Stewart, Peter. I'm sorry. Too many screens in front of me.
Now we got
Peter.
Yeah, I think it will be similar to. I share a similar sentiment to what Stewart said in the beginning, where he said, it's definitely. Um, I have to kind of just adjust to it because my work and school kind of calls for me not to dwell on that aspect for way too long. So I think school for me would definitely have been like a huge distraction. And it kind of, because it's so, I guess, engaging, it causes me not to really kind of think about, the fact that I guess I haven't seen any of my male friends and like face to face wise in terms of since the year started, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of allowing me to just kind of escape the realities of it. However, I do still interact with them, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's as um, engaging as before because it's just kind of limited to like, hey, how's everything going? What's up? All
Mm-hmm.
right, and kind of that's just it. So
Mm-hmm.
it definitely, I would say it's until school is kind of over for me and everything kind of reels back to a more slower pace. I would see how these relationships I guess repair themselves, and hopefully the little mending you do here and there it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of just keep everything together in
Mm-hmm.
the
Okay. Okay. So it seems like across the board school is a distraction. So we often hear that males don't feel. Is there an emotional response to the pandemic? And given that you guys are males, what are your thoughts about males don't this statement, males don't feel?
That's a statement that you would have heard throughout your life growing up. But honestly, we all know as as educated adults that isn't true. Obviously, we do feel, and that's a kind of an outdated mindset, I would say. And some people are kind of peer pressured into carrying it out, and some people try to carry it out with like willingly. I find they definitely put themselves at males, especially that do that willingly, then they put themselves for like mentally imploding.
Mm-hmm.
So even though one might want to keep up the facade, we still do have our friends that we talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, me personally. So, and it's more, I would more talk to my female friends about things that I'm feeling than I would talk to my male friends. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if that kind of plays into the whole stereotype,
Mm-hmm.
but me and my closest male friends don't really talk about how we're feeling unless it's like anecdotal to something that we're about to do,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to where I might message one of my female friends and tell them like, you know, I have no motivation. I do have some male friends that I could talk to, but like I would say maybe Peter or Chris because we're in the same program, so
Mm-hmm.
we could relate to each other with the motivation and the aspects of the pandemic and how they affect school, right? But
Mm-hmm.
still, even at that point, it won't get to a deeply emotional level. It will be what we're feeling at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it seems like you guys don't necessarily talk about the actual feelings, but you're more open to discussing that with females. So even though you experience the feelings, you're not having a discussion about it when you hang out with your male friends.
Yeah, not really for
Definitely,
me.
yeah.
So you guys can relate. So Chris and Peter, are you identifying with Stewart?
I think that Stewart said something that I really can relate to the fact that we speak more emotion wise to our female friends and the male friends don't really get that side of us is something that I think is something that most males can relate to because you kind of reserve those emotional parts of you for the females because you assume that your male friends aren't really going to engage with you on that level. And it's something I definitely see myself doing because I don't like give emotional stuff to my male friends and those kinds of things. So I think that the narrative, as Stewart had said, is not really helping us get anywhere. And it's something that we need to change, because our male friends are just as capable of engaging with us on an emotional level, but it just, based on the way we've been growing, it feels weak to come to another man and be like, hey, ooh, getting out of bed was hard today.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Peter, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Definitely, I do share a similar view, because I do find myself, engaging more with my female friends in terms of kind of how I'm feeling on a really deep emotional level. With my male friends, it's more or less just good vibes. It's just we just kind of talk. We make a few jokes. We might say, the pandemic is difficult, but it might be related to something else, and then we just kind of be like, yeah, true, and move on. But in terms of like female friends, we go deeper into it, and they're like, okay, well, what, so, and then like we kind of explore, okay, what can you do, and all these like long, emotional processes. So I don't think the narrative is actually helping, but just through what we grown to kind of socially learn is that male relationships tend to be a lot more, I guess, less emotional, sorry. And so that is perpetuated unconsciously, though. Even though we know that, he's also a person and he also is feeling things, we kind of just don't talk to it. It's like, okay, you feel, I feel, but we don't really feel together. But I know you're feeling, and if it is that there's ever a time when something is like super serious and kind of want to talk to somebody, I think most males are just open to listening to their friends, but just day to day kind of struggles, they're like, not so much.
So,
What,
so sorry.
what I would like to add to that is that I don't want to step on any toes here, but I feel like if my female friends ask more questions, so like if I say to one of my guy friends, no, today is a hard day, then he would say, oh, rough, or something like that. But like one of my female friends would be like, so tell me why it was so hard. What's going on? Right? So they're more inquisitive about your feelings, and I mean I appreciate it, but I don't think that and I wouldn't expect one of my male friends to like ask me to delve into details either. So that's the thing, it's two-sided, because they don't ask and I don't expect them to ask. But I feel like if my female friends, whether I expect them to ask or not, they will still ask, because it's more, I don't know if it's more comfortable or it's more maybe it's their same narrative as how we're discussing this narrative.
Yeah. So it seems like socialization is playing a role here. That's what I'm getting from you guys.
Definitely.
Yeah. So can we maybe change the narrative today, and for you guys, each of you to express how has the pandemic affected you emotionally? So let's remove the distraction with school, and let's get in touch with those emotions. How has it affected you? If I don't know if you've thought about it, if you've gotten in touch with those feelings.
I think primarily and school is going to be a big part of the conversation, because school's a big part of what's going on right now. But it caused a lot of burnout, and it got to the point where I think one day I was just hanging out clothes and I was just exhausted, like just from hanging out clothes, and I just felt like I couldn't keep going, and I was wondering, how do I find the motivation to do all this work and to sort out problems with the house, problems with the car, it just felt like so much, so overwhelming, all of that. And yeah, I just started to cry for no reason. Well, no reason, that is the reason. And it was really hard. It just felt difficult. So it really just robbed me of that motivation that I usually do have. And it's coming back now after months. For a while there, it felt like you just didn't know where to go, what to do, how to keep going for a second. So yeah.
Thanks, Chris. And thanks for sharing about the tears also, because that's also something that we don't talk about. What do you think got you through it? Because you mentioned that, you know, it's better now. So now you have more motivation. What do you think is happening there?
I think a lot has been said, and you know, it's going around on social media when you follow certain people of being gentle with yourself and recognizing that the world is kind of falling apart, and you shouldn't expect that you're just going to go through it unfazed. Like, you're not that amazing that you're going to go through a whole pandemic and not feel awful at some point. And also, I think my mother said something to me at one point where it was just like, you know, work isn't going to love you back. So you need to take a step back and really focus on yourself before you try and push yourself to get into any work. And just kind of taking that self-care, finding the routine, finding some sense of normalcy in all of this was I think that was the most helpful thing. And just taking some time for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you for that. And we got some tips right here. So self-care, very important, as well as accepting and acknowledging what is actually happening. Yeah, thanks, Chris. What about you, Stewart? What is your emotional response to the pandemic? And I have to repeat it just in case you guys, you know, try to go around it.
Smart.
Shucks, that was my plan. But what I would say is similar to Chris. Like I wouldn't say that I found myself in a place where like I feel like doing much. Like just laying down in my bed on mornings is so hard to get up. And the thing is, like, time management has never been my like strong suit. So now I usually rely on my face-to-face interaction. So like for school, if I have a class in the morning, then I know that I wake up, I'm in a class mode, and then I don't go back to my dorm until I've done some sort of work outside because the library's closer. So now that I have to do it for myself, it's so demotivating and it's tough. Like emotionally, as you like, I don't want to dodge it. I'm not trying to dodge it by talking about school, but it's hard to wake up and tell yourself, well, I do things, and I'm a prolific planner, but my execution has always been the thing, right? So like what I found is that I find myself trying to bite off more than I can chew, and then I get so demotivated. And it's not that I'm not doing self-care. Like I think that's the reason. Maybe too much self-care, maybe just not doing anything. So it's tough to just go on, right? So so what I found has helped. Like I was in a class maybe a day ago, 2 days ago, and we got introduced to the choice therapy. So just now making an active decision to try and like spending it in the here and now, because I would get so defeated thinking about the future. It's so tough to even start anything because I look at it and I say, okay, well, I have this mountain of things to do. Plus I have like home things to do. Like I have to worry about, you know, getting money to buy food, things like that. So then like just like trying to parcel it out into small pieces, like, okay, this is what I have right now at this very moment. And this, I need to make a choice to do this or this and be happy with that choice. But it's not always that easy, is it? Right? So
Yeah.
I mean, it's been helping, but it's still tough, you know.
Yes. Sorry, notification came up. Yes, so you're saying being very realistic with time management. That is important, and being in the here and now. Okay, thank you. What about you, Peter? Your emotional response to the pandemic, and then if you have tips.
All right. Well, at first, for me, it was. I'm not gonna lie. At first, it was pretty okay. Like I think back now and I'm like, like I kind of handled it a little differently. Like I wasn't as, I guess, blindsided by just being home and all of that stuff at first. And so my motivation and thing was through the roof still. Like, and I felt like I was accomplishing like a lot of different things. I would just sit down and I would be reading for like 4 hours plus, then like take a small hour break, work out, then shower, eat, back to work. And I'm like, wow, that was amazing. No, um, that is no, like if I even get one thing done or read for I guess maybe 30 minutes just straight, that is a very long time. And so I don't know what has happened or what has changed, but I think for me is that the longer it goes on, the harder it is for me to find um, that consistent motivation. And at first I just felt super burnt out, like Chris was saying. And I was just like, okay, how am I to do all of these things? And right now I just feel like, sleeping. And you sleep and you wake up and you're still tired. And like I don't understand do I need more sleep? But it's not that. I think it's because okay, in the beginning, maybe I thought the pandemic would have been, a short-term thing. So it was like, okay, a small break is fine. But no, the reality of it is kind of setting in, and it's like, okay, it's been a year now since we've, kind of just all been, taken out of social environments and kind of confined. And,
Mhm.
you know, not to compare it to a prison sentence, but it feels like when you finally accept, okay, I'm here now, and now I need to kind of just get accustomed to what being productive feels like, and maybe it's just like getting 2 tasks done today and kind of just taking care of yourself for the rest of it. Or maybe it's that, you're super motivated today and you get like a lot of work done. And then the next day you're just, it's not as high. And and I think understanding that, and like Chris would have said, just being gentle with yourself and saying, okay, it's fine, I kind of matter more than the work I'm trying to do. And if I'm not okay, then the work wouldn't be okay. And so, you know, understanding that you're the first kind of thing to take care of before you're able to
Mhm.
accomplish anything. Um,
Mhm.
that really helps. And of course, focusing on the here and now, like Stewart would have said. So, not try not to think about, okay, I have this due and this due and this due tomorrow or next week or whatever, but okay, what is it that I can do right now that can kind of get me 80% of the, a head start to where I need to be? And so that just doing, those small things every single day, they add up. And, just kind of being real with it and saying, okay, I might not be fully motivated as I used to be, but maybe I can get one task done and let's see how I feel afterwards.
Mhm.
And just doing that, and the positive self-talk here and there, as well as occasional venting to a friend, and just some social support, or offering a different perspective to things. They might even have small tips, and sometimes you might just need to call a friend, like I said, and do something that you don't typically do. So a few weeks ago, a friend of mine, she kind of got me to like um, rap. So we essentially kind of just did like a beat, and then we were just freestyling. And it was odd, obviously, because I've never done this before, but it was so relaxing afterwards that I was able to, get a lot of work done the day after. So I feel like
Mhm.
maybe sometimes you just need to take yourself out of the environment and,
Mhm.
go to a space where you typically don't. And that might help you.
Yeah. So it seems like you found a creative strategy there. So using creativity and some amount of flexibility and kindness with yourself. So just rolling with it as you go along. And speaking of rolling with it, we do have a segment that's coming up on April 8th at 2:30. Is a panel which is going to discuss mental health strategies. So the title is "The Struggle is Real: How to Preserve Your Mental Health During the Pandemic." Would you have advised males to show up for this? And if so, why?
For me, that's a no-brainer for sure. The males should come to it, especially for the main fact of everything that we've just discussed. But I would say more because the average male out there is not gonna have the knowledge of like mental health and what we have in school, and we still struggle. So I definitely think that getting advice or just a few tips and pointers could help the average male. So I would say 100% they should attend.
Okay. Thank you, Stewart.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, I think we as males buy into that narrative just as much as everybody else does. And I feel that sometimes we feel as though, oh, I don't need, to attend a webinar on, the struggle and how to preserve my mental health. But yeah, you do. Just because you're a male or man does not mean that you're immune to mental health issues and not knowing or falling closer to the illness side of the continuum, So I think it's important that we as men equip ourselves just as much as we would want anybody else to equip themselves on how to keep that mental health healthy. How to keep ourselves going through the difficult time. I think it's very important that we start to equip ourselves and kind of do away with the narrative that we don't feel and that we don't need it.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. What about you, Peter? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's always a good experience for you to learn new things. And even if you feel like, okay, maybe I already figured out how to deal with this pandemic, there might be something there. It doesn't hurt. You lose nothing from just experiencing it, but there's a lot of things to gain. And you never know what tips or maybe something very small that you might latch onto, and it could just expand your arsenal. And so you're rolling with it even better, So I would say definitely males need to, or I would recommend them attending this kind of forum.
Yeah. Okay. I want to thank you guys for spending the time this morning to talk about males, their mental health, how you guys are managing the pandemic, and really just to bring this information across so that others will have a better understanding and feel encouraged to show up to use the resources that we're providing for them, males or females. Thank you, guys.